Well, good afternoon, ladies. We are welcoming you to the October 13th edition of Black Professionals Month. We're almost halfway through the inaugural Black Professionals Month. We are here to connect, collaborate, and build a trusted community. And we want to make sure that everybody gets to know each other. We want to make sure that we are here to step up, stand out, and break through the high roles of leadership and sustain wealth. And as we do that, part of being able to make those things happen is working on ourselves and growing and getting better. So we want to thank you guys for being here, because you are fired up as we are, and you're also ready to do something about it because your presence demonstrates that. So I am very happy now to introduce to some, present to others, our speaker for the moment, and that is Dr. Reggie Lewis. For over the past 25 years, she has been a noteworthy leader in the business development, executive coaching, and consulting realm throughout the South Florida region. She is the founder and CEO and president of Fusion Consulting Associates LLC, also as well as the president and CEO of Fancy Vegan LLC. Her firm, Fusion Consulting Associates, specializes in providing customized business solutions to clients in various industries in both the private and public sectors. Recently, Dr. Lewis diversified her business portfolio with the launch of Fancy Vegan LLC. This premium plant-based lifestyle brand brings awareness to lifestyle and food alternatives that are cruelty-free and environmental friendly. Fancy Vegan promotes the life-saving benefits of adopting a whole food plant-based diet to improve health and wellness in minority communities. And she is also very passionately engaged in empowering individuals and organizations to overcome their challenges and reach their full potential. Dr. Lewis holds a Doctor of Education in Organizational Leadership with a specialization in conflict analysis and resolution, a Master of Science in Administration and Management, a Bachelor of Science in Legal Studies, and a certification in plant-based science and nutrition. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I'm going to bring to you Dr. Reggie Lewis, and the next voice that you hear will actually be that of Dr. Reggie Lewis. You have to unmute, Reggie, unmute.
That would be nice, right? And it was a great introduction too. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming today to actually learn more about this thing that we're hearing about, plant-based, vegan. You hear so many of these terms interchangeably. So being able to have an opportunity to learn about the benefits and some of the benefits of adopting a plant-based diet, and really more of a lifestyle, because typically when you hear diet, it has that negative connotation, but really and truly it's a lifestyle that you adopt. And so what I'm going to do is actually share my screen so that I can bring up the presentation. Okay, great. So let me give you a little background about how I actually got into this plant-based world. When I was younger, which was not too many years ago, I used to spend, my parents are Haitian, so I used to spend my summers in Haiti. And in the islands, most of the food there is organic. You have a lot of organic foods, a lot of cultivating different types of fruits and vegetables, as well as when they get into their protein, whether it's the chicken or the cow or what have you, those are actually prepared fresh. And I remember one summer, I had a little buddy, and we'll call him Chickadee, nice, cute little chicken. He was my friend. So I would run around the yard with him and play with him, and, which was super cool. And then one day, Chickadee became dinner. And I was traumatized. I didn't realize that I was traumatized at the time, because the whole process of catching him, and I saw we had a housekeeper, and I saw her, she got him. And then all of a sudden, they did the process. For those of you that are, they're probably raised on a farm or familiar with the process, you could understand how grueling that experience may have been for a child. And later on, Chickadee was dinner, and I refused to eat, but I didn't make that connection until later on, because I would get the question all the time. It's been 25 years since I completely went plant-based. And people would ask me all the time, like, what prompted you to transition into a plant-based diet? And it was interesting because as a child, my mom, she had restaurants. So what she would do, I was a kid that if I didn't like it, I just wouldn't eat it. I wouldn't complain, I just wouldn't eat it. And my mom noticed that I was not eating the meat. So she would always prepare a separate meal for me. And it wasn't until some time ago, they talk how sometimes you don't quite remember different experiences or trauma manifests in different ways, and there are different memories and things of that sort. It wasn't until one day I remembered the reason I had this completely was not interested in meat anymore was because of that experience as a child. And so I remember I was in college with a friend of mine, and we were, we worked together at this call center, and my mom used to always cook big meals. So she would always, not lunch was just not for me, it was for me and my friends. So I just remembered she prepared this meal and there was meat in it. And I told my friend, I said, you know what? I don't eat this anyway. So I think as of today, I'm just going to completely stop eating meat. And I did it cold turkey. And that was about, I'm not going to say turkey, cold tofu. How about that? and so that was 25 plus years ago. And I never looked back. And initially I started off as a vegetarian, although 90% of what I was eating was still more dairy free, was still more vegan, on the vegan side than anything else. And what was interesting is a lot of times when you're making that transition, the key thing is you're afraid of what will I eat? I love this and I love that. How will I still enjoy flavor and, things of that sort? And one of the biggest things, most people, when they stop eating meat, they start overloading on carbs. So they go to pastas, they go to breads, they go to, so because they're not familiar or aware of the diversity of options, food options that are available to them. So of course, it was one of those things. I transitioned, I was eating more carbs and things of that sort. But then what I realized was that being Haitian, our Haitian cuisine is one of the many plant-based friendly cuisines that's out there. So that helped as well. So it wasn't until one of the key things that I realized for 20 something years, I never had the flu. My blood pressure is always key. As a matter of fact, my blood pressure sometimes is on the lower side. And because I'm not consuming the animal protein and things of that sort. So it's made a tremendous impact in terms of health-wise, the mental clarity, the energy, and just across the board. And then also being able to, have a cruelty way of life, animal cruelty-free way of eating, as well as being able to protect the environment, lowering our carbon footprint, as well as lowering food waste as well. So I wanted to kind of get into how I got into, transitioned into a plant-based lifestyle. And so a few years ago, most of the time when I'm traveling, it's always a challenge in terms of being able to find vegan friendly food, which is pretty interesting because, you eliminate the dairy. There are some things that some restaurants aren't aware that they can actually make some minor tweaks that could indeed, that would be plant-based. And just constantly having those challenges and traveling and going to restaurants and just things of that sort. And a few years ago, right before the pandemic, I was in Puerto Rico with a friend of mine. And I remember there was this restaurant that she wanted to go to and she just couldn't wait. And normally what I do, I always look at the menu before I go to any restaurant. So that way I can veganize the menu prior to getting there. So I'm not that oddball at the table where everyone's looking at me, okay, did you figure out what you're gonna eat yet? So I always make sure I do my homework beforehand. And with this particular restaurant, there were some things that I realized that, okay, I can tweak a little and it would be fine. Made it to the restaurant, but they were not flexible at all. So they weren't willing to make any tweaks to the menu. So in essence, my friend was eating and there was nothing there for me to eat other than drinking water. And she felt horrible. And of course I felt bad because here it is, it's now impacting her eating, her experience, because she really wanted to go to this restaurant. So I ended up having to go to another local restaurant that did have options. And I bring that point up because for so many years, I've always been so frustrated with the process, but it's not because it's a lack of option. It's a lack of awareness and a lack of education, both in our restaurants, both in terms of people not realizing that it's not as complicated as they may think. So that's what gave birth to Fancy Vegan. So it's one of those things, being able to promote the awareness and also being able to help people to realize that there are so many cool options, alternatives that you can have by adopting a plant-based diet, especially even in traveling, going to certain hotels, even cars, like even now you have Lexus and Volkswagens and some of the others, their cars now have vegan leather. So even in the travel space, in the dining space, in the fashion space. So it's really the plant-based world, plant-based lifestyle is really evolving. And it's one of the reasons that, gave birth to Fancy Vegan. And it was So I just kind of wanted to kind of give you a little context with that. So it's plant conscious living with a sophisticated twist. Because a lot of times you think of plant-based lifestyle, you're thinking like, oh gosh, I have to eat tofu, you're hugging the trees, everything is bland. I love food. I love fine cuisine. I know you're there, sorry. I love flavorful foods. So that was the whole concept between fancy vegan and having that sophisticated twist. So I just wanted to get into some things here in terms of Fancy Vegan is a plant-based lifestyle brand, and we promotes the cruelty-free and sustainable living in the world of health, wellness, fashion, travel, and dining. And I wanted to get into being able to kind of help you with the differentiation between plant-based and whole food. Because keep in mind, just because it's plant-based doesn't mean that it's healthy. Because just because you have plant-based chocolate cake doesn't mean that it's a healthier option. Just because you're eating plant-based fried chicken doesn't mean that it's a healthier option. Because keep in mind, it's still garbage in, garbage out. So just because they add the plant-based or the vegan on it, it doesn't mean that you're eating the best, healthier options. So one of the key things in terms of, so you have plant-based options, and Denise and I were speaking earlier. She said, well, what's the difference when you see the plant-based chicken and the vegan chicken? So you have, the terms are used interchangeably, yes, but there's also a difference in terms of just because it's plant-based. So because you're eating processed plant-based food doesn't mean that it's entirely a better option because it's still processed, okay? So one of the key things that I like to share with people is being able to have a hybrid in terms of maybe you can have 80% whole food, and I'll get into that in a second, and maybe 20% processed. So when we get into the whole food plant-based diet, now that's when you're solely eating your vegetables, your fruits, your grains, and you're relying solely on the whole, like your sweet potato, your squash, and things of that sort. So that's the difference between when you see plant-based, just because it's just plant-based doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting the most, the refined, I'm sorry, just a second, that you're getting the most healthier version of it all. So just being able to understand the difference between the two. And then we get into why plant-based. And one of the key things when I speak to people about, though, for people that are interested in transitioning into a plant-based lifestyle, you always have to know your why. Because if you don't know your why, when you hit some of those challenges, those roadblocks in terms of until you're comfortable with learning how to diversify your food options, sometimes there may be those levels of frustration, because sometimes you may be the only one at a family event or even a function where there isn't anything that's plant-based for you. So I know my family laughed at me because for the longest, we would have Thanksgiving and they would invite me, and then there's salad. I'm like, I want to eat too. I want something more than just salad. So I started carrying my little vegan kit. So I'd have my little, my vegan turkey and all the other stuff. And so I would go, and that would be the running joke. Oh, let's see what's in Reggie's little vegan kit this year for Thanksgiving or Christmas. So we get into the why, because when you do face some of those challenges, it may be a bit discouraging, but if you stick to that, you'll understand it kind of keep you motivated until you're able to see that transition isn't as complex as you think. It's just a shifting of the mindset. Okay, just like last week when we had the session on monetizing your brilliance, the key thing is you have to know your why. What's your motivation for leaving your career? What's your motivation for wanting to start your career? So because that's what will sustain you when you hit those roadblocks until you get through the process where it's not as complex as you may think. So it starts with the mindset. I have a niece, she's 11 now, but she's been vegetarian since she was 9. I remember her saying, I don't want to eat meat anymore. And she was super excited. And the first thing I asked her was, why? And she's, her response was, I love animals so much, I can't fathom eating them. And so when her siblings are teasing her, because she's, completely, she's decided not to consume any animal byproducts, she's able to stick to that because she's sticking to the love the love that she has for her pets. And so we get into the health benefits. Why? Some people may have various health conditions, cardiovascular disease, high cholesterol, diabetes, hypertension. And those are some of the very challenges, the very health conditions that, to be honest with you, if you notice during the pandemic, Blacks and minorities, Black and Latinos were the highest, the highest rate of those that actually didn't make it. Okay, the highest mortality rate. Why? Because of those various combined health conditions. So understanding the importance, the health benefits, so that's another option. That's another why. So that's something that can kind of drive you to being able to stick with it until you realize that it's not as complex. And I keep saying, because I think the misnomer is that transitioning to a plant-based diet is just so complex. You're foregoing all of the things that you love and that you enjoy, that you were raised on. But there are so many different alternatives that you'll enjoy that are just in flavor, that are just as flavorful, and you wouldn't even notice the difference. And then, of course, for sustainable living, being able to reduce your carbon footprint, being able to reduce the food waste and things of that sort. So those are some of the key whys in terms of understanding why and the benefits. And so we get into, so I'm going to kind of give a few stats on how Black women are impacted at such a higher rate as it relates to various chronic diseases. Black women experience the highest rate of preventable chronic diseases. However, they account for the highest rate of mortality. When you're looking at cardiovascular disease that was mentioned before, hypertension, diabetes, and so many other challenges that are out there. So studies have proven Black vegans and vegetarians have a 50% lower risk of high cholesterol. They have a 43% lower risk of obesity, okay? Black vegans have a much lower risk of high cholesterol than vegetarians. Okay, so I kind of wanted to put that in there because vegetarians, you do have pescatarians, they still consume fish, which is fine, but they still consume dairy. Okay, so keep in mind, when you're looking at dairy, you're still looking at some of those various challenges as it relates to being able to, as far as the high cholesterol, higher fat content, higher sodium, and things of that sort. So being able to understand that just making a few tweaks in your current way of living could have a major impact. Because studies have proven that individuals that have actually transitioned to a plant-based lifestyle, even for 3 weeks, were able to notice a considerable change in their dependency of medication. For example, diabetes and insulin, hypertension, blood pressure drugs, the beta blockers, and things of that sort. And studies have proven that. They've done observational studies that have actually been able to prove that they actually have a major impact and also reducing the glycemic index in a lot of the foods that we're consuming as well, which is pretty interesting. So just to kind of give you an idea, like my mom, she passed away a few years ago, but prior to that, I remember she stayed with me for about 6 months, and she loves her, she loves her meat, she loves her rice and everything else. And I've had her I'm like, just give me 6 months, give me 6 months, Mom. And she wasn't willing to go completely vegan, but my mom was willing to adopt a vegetarian diet. And within those 6 months, my mom was able to lose 75 pounds. She was able to lose 75 pounds. And as far as the moving, the working out part of it, I told her, I said, Mom, you know what? You don't have to jog a mile around the block, but just give me 30 minutes of exercise. And what she would do, she would move around the house. She would, while she was watching television, she would stand up, she would sit down for 10 minutes. Then she would walk up and down the hall for 10 minutes. And then by the end of the day, collectively, she would have had 30 minutes of movement, and it had that much of an impact on her health. So just to kind of give some idea from there. And so some of the benefits when you think about transitioning, because a lot of times, again, we get back into, everyone's thinking, I only have to eat tofu or, just the bland things that are out there. No, that's not the case. Trust me, I love good food, and there's a wealth of opportunities that are out there. And some of the key benefits, if anything else, if not for anything else, you're able to get more energy, weight loss. You're able to sustain your weight, to be quite honest with you. You're able to lower the benefits of lowering blood pressure, gaining mental clarity, because sometimes so many of us suffer from brain fog and not understanding why. And lowering your cholesterol, just improved overall health, and even improved health patterns. And here's what's pretty interesting. Sometimes you may feel lethargic or you feel achy, and you're trying to think of, what did I eat that day? And most of the time, it's not what you ate that day. There are things that you consumed days before, okay? That, that are having you have those foods that kind of make you more lethargic, so to speak. So just being able to get more into understanding the benefits of foods and knowing that food is medicine. And you can therapeutically manage various health conditions through the foods that you're eating, which is very important to understand. And let's see here. So we get into, nutrition is the master key. Nutrition is the mastery key to the human health, which is so true. Because once you can understand the importance of what you're putting into your body, it makes a world of difference, tremendously. There's been observational studies in terms of how eating a whole food plant-based diet have been able to, assist in cancer remission, even in the precancerous stages and the first stages as well. There's been tremendous studies that have proven in terms of being able to reduce the dependency on insulin, reduce or even eliminate the dependency on insulin, as well as hypertension, the blood pressure medication, being able to reduce or eliminate the need for those beta blockers. So it makes a world of difference. So then we get into, just education, being able to understand where can you find information? And sometimes, just hearing about it and then being able to see it yourself, right? So there are some really cool documentaries that are out there that could really help you in your transition, to help you to get a better understanding of the impact of the things that we're eating on our health, as well as the environment. So there's What the Health, which is a really good series. The Game Changer, Forks Over Knives. There's the Cowspiracy, Vegucated, and Food Inc. Let me tell you, watch any one of these and they will definitely change your entire perspective on the importance of being mindful of what you're putting into your body. And we have here the What the Health, which was a pretty interesting one. They really actually did a more or less looking at the pharmaceutical industry, as well as the impact that it has and why there's so much resources placed into providing little Zori here is having a little thing back there. Why it's so important why the pharmaceutical industry has such a handle on promoting these different medications. And because one medication, then you need another one to combat the side effects of that one. And they actually followed some people where they changed the way that they were eating and they transitioned to a plant-based diet, and they were able to reduce, better yet, eliminate their dependency on, years of heavy medication for various issues. And so I'm going to open up the floor for some questions, just in case in a second, but I also wanted to, I know some of you may be based locally here in South Florida and some of you may not be, but if you are, there are some various events that may be in your local area to give you an opportunity to get a glimpse into what, the options that are available with different vendors, different foods, different drinks and things of that sort. So in this Saturday, and I'm not an ambassador for either one of these, there's a vegan block party here in Miami where there'll be at least 200 different vendors, you name it, desserts and foods and drinks and things of that sort and different activities. So that's this weekend. And then there's the food, wine, of course I put food, wine and wine, but the food, wine and the Seafood and Wine Festival. It's a 4-day event that consists of all sorts of really cool things. And let me tell you, you walk in there, keep in mind, because when you get into the whole world of plant-based and veganism, wine, not every wine is plant-based friendly, because some of the, I'll get into that for those at a later time. But yeah, so just to kind of get into it, so you're able to really experience the different desserts and you won't even notice the difference. Because a lot of times I actually make meals and I like to trick my family, and they'll try certain things and they love it. And they're like, whoa, this is some good stuff. I'm like, yeah, welcome to my side. I remember one Thanksgiving, I made a vegan spread. And of course they had, their regular turkey and everything else. And of course, everyone ate my vegan spread. I'm like, wait 1 second. This was just for the select few of us here. And even the mac and cheese, your sweet potato pie, you can still enjoy those things. Trust me, you won't miss it. Just try it. So I wanted to, in the upcoming week, there's a challenge that will be loading, as you can see here. So we'll do a 3-day plant-based challenge. And starting right now, tentatively, I'm thinking like Monday, the 18th. But for those of you that are interested, I want you to go into ICABA World and send me a message if you're interested, because that way I know definitely you'll be able to reach me there. But we'll do a challenge and really be able to give you an idea, give you an option to what you'll receive. You'll get a grocery list. You get a few really cool recipes that you can tweak. And then we'll look at the things that you're currently eating, right? The things that you currently enjoy. And then we'll talk about some of the alternatives you can have that, that are just as flavorful. So just to kind of give you an option from there. So for those of you that are interested in participating in this challenge, just be sure to go to ICABA World Community. Do I have that right, Hutch? ICABAworldcommunity.com, and send me a message. Oh,
Yeah,
you're
you're
muted.
correct, and I'll put it in the chat so they can get to it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Johnny
And
already do it.
so challenge loading. So those of you that are ready to come on over to my side, be sure to send that message. And the next slide is just basically, are you ready? Are you ready to really and truly take control of your health? Take control of in terms of being able to enjoy the benefits of adopting a healthier lifestyle. And not to imply that some of you aren't, but for those of you that aren't, being able to just give it a try and see the benefits of how you can really and truly improve your health, improve your sleep, improve your energy level. And I tell you, I went 20 years and I'd never had the flu, cold, or anything of that sort. And that was after I adopted a plant-based lifestyle, which had a tremendous impact. And just being able to, in addition to just incorporate a little movement, a little activity. Keep in mind, you don't have to jog a mile around the block, but what you can do is, if you're watching television, get up and sit down. Get up and sit down, get the heart rate going. Even if you do for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and before you know it, you walk around the house. When you're on the phone, walk around the house, because before, when you're on the phone and you're getting that, the tea or the goods, as they put it, on whatever hot gossip you're listening to, an hour can go by easily, right? So if you're on the phone, walk around your house, walk around the block. And again, you'll be able to realize a major benefit, a major impact in your health. So what I'm going to do now is open up the floor to questions. I think we have time.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So if you have any questions, just send it in the chat.
Okay.
Dr. Reggie. Hello.
Hey.
A lot that you said resonates with me. And my biggest thing now is my why. And I struggle with my vegetarian, vegan, meatitarian diet. So I move all between everything at once, right? At different times. But for the past 3 months, I am more into a vegetarian lifestyle, because I still do salmon and sardines. So my thing though is, you made a point of the whole food plant-based and the plant-based. So I kind of feel guilty sometimes when, like yesterday, I went to the supermarket and I got all these, my husband called it fake meats, right? Because it's plant-based, but I think I'm also cheating because it is preserved at something. It's not really fresh and raw. What is your take on that?
To be honest with you, you're actually not cheating, because the key thing is you need to be able to transition into it, because keep in mind, you're trying something totally different, right? Okay. So it's better to have the plant-based version of it than the animal product part of it. So you're doing the right, so just being able to, the key thing is learning, getting that introduction into the options that are available to you. And then as you grow and as you start learning more, and then you evolve into more of the whole food way of eating. So it's not to say that you can't have any of that at all, but I pretty much like to, if you are, kind of make it more of an 80 to 20% in terms of maybe 80% whole foods and 20% of the process. But as a person that's just recently, just newly kind of engrossing, getting into the plant-based lifestyle, it's okay, even if it's more than that 20% point, because again, keep in mind, you're still reducing your intake of animal protein, which will have a major impact on any health condition you may have. And even if you don't have a health condition, preventative measure as well. So no, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to do that. So just, and that's the key thing. And you made a great point in understanding your why, because you will have people around you, whether it's your family, whether it's your friends, or whatever the case may be, they will sit there and it's like, oh, how do you get your protein? And if you're, having some things that probably aren't as encouraging. Mm-hmm. And if you're not sound in your why, it could get you to a point where that discouragement leads you into consuming the very things that you're trying to avoid. And one of the key things that I think I need to start, I saw this on social media as well, in terms of this one person was being teased, and you saw the person hold up their blood work and their blood pressure. It's like, yeah, so you're teasing me about that, but let me show you how great my health is. I should have actually put that meme in here, which is pretty interesting because you will run into that. But keep in mind, the high sodium, high animal-based, high dairy-based diet, it's not helping us. It's harming our community. That's why we have the highest rate of, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, diabetes. You have all these, trifectors, so to speak. And a lot of it historically, when you go back to, during slavery, those are the things that our ancestors ate and it passed on into. So we're predisposed genetically to have some of these various complications. But just because that's how it started doesn't mean that that's how it has to end. Okay, so just because you were born in poverty doesn't mean that you have to die in poverty. So just because you're not rich doesn't mean that you don't come from a rich family, but a rich family can come from you. You may not come from a healthy family, or may have these various factors within your family, but it doesn't mean that it has to continue, because they start seeing that change in you, which I was surprised when my niece, she's 9 years old, and Bella, and I was just so excited when she called me, and I was like, so why? I thought, as a 9-year-old, I'm thinking she's gonna say, well, I just want to try because I've seen you do it, but no. She said, listen, I love animals and I don't want to harm them. And that was her why. And she's 11 now. Mm-hmm. She's around her other friends that are eating those things when, they're hanging out, but she's sticking to that. And the key thing is, whenever they're at my house, my family, everything is plant-based. And I'm still cooking, flavorful meals, and they're eating it. No one's complaining. Actually, they're asking for seconds. They're asking me hey, can you make some more? So the key thing is being able to stick to your why and understanding that, because the key thing is your why is because you want to live longer. Your why is because you want to model those healthier behaviors for your family, and eventually they'll follow as well. So that was a great question.
I saw a question in from Denise, was wanting to know, do you ever meet with restaurant owners to talk about the different things they could add to their menu for those people who are looking for vegan options?
Absolutely. I am, one of my clients is in the airport, and they're one of the master concessionaires, and I'm actually their vegan consultant, so to speak. I provide a market insight study for them, and based on that, that's how they determine the food, beverage, and retail brands and concepts that they bring in based on what the passengers want, and this through the study that I provide to them. And it was interesting. We were having one of our consultations, a consulting session. And, the thing is, I was explaining to them, you're missing a large chunk of the population because of the way that your menus are structured, because you're more focused on providing options for vegetarians, and you're completely missing out on your vegans. And I said, here's the thing. Vegans will not eat vegetarian-based foods because of the dairy, okay? I said, however, vegetarians will eat vegan options. I said, so if you turn that around, you'll notice a major change. And what I did was I went through their menu and was able to, they made some tweaks, and believe it or not, they were able to increase their revenue, because unfortunately, as vegans, we're used to paying a higher price point. Unfortunately, you go somewhere, it's like, oh, can you take off the steak and just give me the vegetable? They're charging you the price of steak and lobster. And it's like, wow, okay. But it's unfortunate, but we've grown accustomed to that. So yes, great question. I've had those conversations. That's one of the reasons that gave birth to Fancy Vegan as well, because it was one of those things. I'm going to restaurants and I'm looking at their menus, and I find myself having conversations with their manager or the general manager and sharing with them, do you realize that there are some things that you can tweak that could really and truly have a major impact as far as appealing to a wider audience and also increasing your revenue in a certain area? So yes, I have had that opportunity, and every chance I get. So that was a great question, and it's a key thing. They're missing the mark. A lot of these companies are missing the mark entirely.
Great, thank you.
Well, Rachel, go ahead. No.
Dr. Reggie, my question is about protein powder, because I usually do a smoothie in the morning. I I normally use organic, plant-based, protein powder. Is there one that you recommend over another one, or does it matter? Or what are your thoughts in that in that area?
I use this brand that's called Plant Pure. And the reason I use it is because it's very clean. And it uses pea protein as opposed to the soy. And it has a much lower calorie count. And it has the amino acids as well. And I get it from, gosh, what is it name? The Vitamin Shop. And the reason, because there are so many protein powders that are out there. And it's good to supplement a meal if you'd like with it, but you don't want that to be something that you're having all day, every day, right? But you have, well, for all your meals, rather, you can have a shake every day, which is perfectly fine. But what I use the Plant Pure. I've tried so many of the different options that are out there, and Plant Pure is the one that I found that worked best. And also because it's cleaner, and I don't feel, it doesn't have that chalky taste to it, and it blends really well. And you could also use it if you're baking as well. So, which is pretty cool, but it's Plant Pure. I'll try to see if I can find it before we get off the call.
No, I just looked it up. I think I found it online because I've been using Orgain.
I used to use Orgain, but it has a little aftertaste to it, and there were some ingredients that I wasn't too fond of.
Okay.
And when I was able to, the Plant Pure, it's in a brown container, and it has like peas on there, I think it is. Yeah. And one of the things that you'll realize, the more mindful you become of the things that you're eating, it also opens up your eyes to various things that may have been impacting you health-wise that you never imagined. Because now you're so much, with the moment something foreign is introduced to your body, you feel weird. I could literally have something and know, wait 1 second, there's something in here that doesn't agree with me. And I remember, for example, I went to, where was it? I went to, I think it was Grand Lux. And there was this little miniature tacos. I told them vegetables only, no sauce or anything like that, because you have to be mindful of some of the sauces, right? Because a lot of them have dairy, or they have honey, depending on how strict you are as a vegan, they don't consume honey as well. And I remember explaining to the guy, no dairy at all, just give me the vegetables, or whatever the case is. And the moment I took a bite into it, instantly my eyes started to water, and I could just feel something was weird. So I stopped and I kind of lifted, the vegetables, and there was a sauce that was on there. Okay. So you become more sensitive, not necessarily sensitive, but you're more aware, more alert of things that actually impact you. So you see some people that, have inflammation and not realizing that they have gluten sensitivity. And keep in mind, there's a difference between food allergies and food sensitivities. Okay. So one of the things that I was able to realize is I could eat certain things and feel weird in the sense that feel lethargic. And I kept trying to figure, I'm going through the process of elimination, because now you're more mindful, aware of what you're eating, right? And I realized, and I went to the doctor, had a lab panel done, and I have a sensitivity to brown rice. Now, I'm an island girl. I love, we eat rice. Black people, we love rice, okay? Have you rice and beans, rice and peas, give us the white, whatever it is you have, just give it to us. It's a staple. Well, I didn't realize that I had a sensitivity to it, but my body, because again, when you're eating cleaner, any little foreign thing starts triggering, right? And which is, Johnny, getting to the point with the protein. I didn't realize that I was using a protein powder that had brown rice. And a lot of the products that are out there contain brown rice. But here's the thing, the cooked version, because once heat is applied to it, the agent, that active agent, is no longer there. Okay. So I realized that if it's cooked brown rice or something else, it's fine. And so I realized that the protein shake that I was having contained brown rice, and I completely eliminated it, didn't have any problems. Okay. So then you look at, and then of course it was causing inflammation as well. So those are like some simple things that, once you start getting mindful of what it is you're ingesting, and people love dairy. What is it? The dairy industry pays a hefty price to the federal government to make sure that they're on every food tray in America in our school cafeterias. Okay. If some of you go back to your childhood when you were in school, what's the one thing that they always made sure you had on your tray, whether you would want it or not? They would tell you, you have to put that milk back on there. It's because of the money that the dairy industry puts into the federal government as it relates to the Food Drug Administration, which that's a whole other component. And then dairy has a component, I think it's casein, I always get the term mixed up, but it actually has an addictive agent to it. So that's why when you have cheese, you can't give it up. You love it, right? It's one thing, normally when I hear people, when they're saying, I can't go plant-based, I can't give up cheese. Yeah, of course you can't, because the time you were small, time you were a baby, they made sure you had the dairy. And then, when they used to have the big blocks of cheese that they would subsidize, and you're thinking, hey, I can't get rid of it. And the issue with the dairy is this: the dairy creates that mucus within your body. So it makes you more susceptible to various diseases that are out there because it's latching on to that dairy within your system. So you become very mucousy, right? And then you think about it. When does a woman produce milk? When she's hormonal. So you're thinking about, the animals, you're thinking about your cows when they're hormonal, right? So guess what? Those things are going into your body as well. So then you kind of just start looking at it. So you become so much more, it's like you open up Pandora's box when you decide to start going into that plant-based world, because then you become so much more mindful and just being able to understand. So if you are consuming dairy and it's hard for you to get rid of it or to break away from it, just try reducing the amount of dairy that you are consuming, because it makes a world of difference. And when you look at the different benefits, the different issues from there, but there's a whole, if you look at some of the documentaries that I shared with you, you'll see that there's a world that you hadn't even imagined that was out there. And another option, and this is the last point that I'll make, is also understanding that when you watch, I think, What the Game, I think that's the title of it, they actually followed athletes, okay, athletes that were on a plant-based diet versus those that weren't. And one of the things that they realized is that the athletes that were on a plant-based diet, they were able to perform much better, and they were able to reduce their recovery time, okay, for any injuries that they had. I think it was the Tennessee Titans? I think the majority of their players actually started adopting a plant-based diet a few seasons ago, and their performance increased tremendously. Their injury list, the time that the players were out for injuries was reduced tremendously, and it made a world of difference. And on that note, I'll stop there. If you have any other questions, but keep in mind, if you're interested in being a part of the challenge, find me on ICABA World community and send a message, and we'll go ahead and form a group and actually start with some recipes, a grocery list recipes, and really have that support system so that you'll realize once you get into this world, trust me, you're not going back.
All right. Well, thank you, Reggie. Thank you for those who are here to participate. And, I guess you just made the point that Black Professionals Month is the party. And so now you have the after party on the ICABAworldcommunity.com as you put this group together. But, guys, it really is a part of what it's all about. We've talked on a number of different times about we get together, convene, gather, and talk about doing things. But then, it kind of fails because there's nothing to keep us together once that initial gathering happens. But we can do this now. So we'll be able to keep the party going, if you will, 24/7, 365. And, there's so much I know that I've heard Reggie talk, more about, the whole vegan lifestyle. There's ways to help you to know how to eat out. You'll definitely learn how to read labels better. So she can kind of really walk you through your journey of getting you there. And it really is very, 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 very beneficial. So thank you for being here. We appreciate.
Can I share one last thing? Can I share one thing? One of the things that's worked a lot tremendously for me, there's this app that's called Happy Cow, and the cow is happy because it's not being eaten. And it's kind of cheesy. So it's called Happy Cow. Best few dollars spent. I don't care where I am in the world. I actually put in, use it, whether it brings it down to vegetarian or vegan friendly venues, or if you want completely vegan friendly plant-based venues, it'll tell you every spot within a certain mile radius, wherever you go at any given point. So key little strategies. Before I go to a restaurant, I look at the menu, I just see how I can veganize it, and being able to have the happy cow. So that way you're able to, see wherever you are in the world, you'll be able to find options that are within reach. So it's not as complex. So the key thing is to be able to help you understand the benefits and how you can really and truly transition and really enjoy it, like it's second nature. Become second nature. So I'm done.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And we've got Dr. Dez, who is here getting ready for our next session coming up at 1 o'clock. And so we're just going to, and Dez, we're going to drop off and come back on, kind of reset the Zoom so that we'll get the separate video recordings. And so great job, Reggie, as always. And thank you everybody for being here. And so just basically, if you log off, just wait a minute and log right back on, before 1 o'clock, and we'll be ready to go. And Dad, we'll come right back on and be here for you and kind of walk through our pregame, okay? But there won't be any drinks with it. All right, talk to you guys soon. Bye.
All right, take care. Bye.